Please join me in welcoming back our talented musician, Fareed Malali, who will be playing a couple of musical selections for us. Fareed has played violin since age 3 and performs with the Ottawa Pops Orchestra. He works as a transportation engineer at a consulting firm, promoting walking, cycling, and public transit through mobility planning and infrastructure design. Fareed is passionate about creating vibrant, sustainable communities at the intersection of urban planning and engineering, and enjoys staying active outdoors in nature.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your beautiful music with us this evening.
I'm glad I get to share it.
Okay. Wonderful. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Mélanie Ouellette. Mélanie is the founder of the Ottawa Wildflower Seed Library, a grassroots initiative promoting Indigenous reconciliation, climate action, and women's empowerment through native plant stewardship. She holds a master's in political science, an MBA, and a bachelor's in international relations. Mélanie has worked in federal government policy and communications and currently manages strategic planning at Engineers Canada. Recipient of the 2023 Ecology Ottawa Active and Accessible City Award, she lives in Orleans with her husband. Friends, please join me in welcoming Mélanie. Mélanie, welcome to Environment Café 613. We're excited to have you here and look forward to your talk.
Thank you very much for having me tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the beautiful poem and thoughts and music. It's a really, I feel very lucky to have had such a nice setup for my presentation. Thank you very much. So today I'm going to talk to you about what is native plant gardening. And if you have any questions, like as we go along, please feel free to shoot, like your question in the chat or you raise your hand. I'm happy to take questions as we go along. Um, yeah, so my name is Mélanie, and I'm the chair and founder of the Ottawa Wildflower Seed Library. And I started this Wildflower Seed Library about 5 years ago now. And so I'm happy to talk to you about what is native plant gardening and how you can help with simple practices in your garden. So this is my garden at home. This is where I live in Orleans. And all the plants that you're going to see today are, in fact, natives to Ontario. Okay. So first I'm gonna talk. So usually like when people start these kind of talks, they have a land acknowledgement and they talk a little bit about, what it means to them to reconcile with the land. So for me, I want to talk to you about like how I got started and how we've incorporated indigenous principles in what we're doing. So how many of you have heard of Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer? Nice. Yeah, that's good. I see a few hands up. That's awesome. So she's an ethnobotanist. She's also indigenous, and she's written like beautiful books. They're kind of like a mix of science and poetry. They're wonderful. I highly recommend them. And so during COVID, I was watching. So during COVID, you guys got started with this project. So during COVID, I started the seed library. That was my COVID project. And somebody asked her a question and said, "The world is on fire. What can we do to help?" And that really resonated with me because, the state of the world that we're in, like where do we get started? There's so much that needs to be fixing and needs to be fixed. And so what she said stuck with me. She said, use your talents and do what you're passionate about. So for me, like the only thing I can think of that I could do every day without, getting tired of it was gardening. I had been gardening since I was like 14 years old, like vegetable gardening, traditional gardening. And that May was the first time I planted my first native plant. So this is my first native plant here. It's called the spotted Joe Pyeweed. And that plant brought me so much more joy than any plant I planted before. And I saw that it was really visited by bees and butterflies and I thought, oh, that's a good idea. So maybe that's a good way to decolonize the land is to grow the native plants that were here before colonization. And use your talent. So I made a list of all the things I can do and be good at. And also, like, I thought to myself, like, aren't people growing native plants as much as, we could be doing? And so I came up with two major gaps to fill. One was access to seeds. So that's how the seed library got started. And also education. So people did not know about native plant gardening. They didn't know, like, like why is it important to our ecosystem? And so this is how we got the Facebook group started. And this is also why I'm presenting to you tonight to raise awareness of how like native plants can really help with climate change and things like that. So I also want to acknowledge, like I have a Mitzi from Red River Nation, like he's a Mitzi Nation card holder. His name is Matthew Oliver, and he shares with me like insights and has been a teacher all along with me. So I want to acknowledge him because he's important into the development of the seed library and how it works now. And finally, I want to acknowledge like my commitment to land restoration. And so this is me here, and this is meant to represent the genealogy of the people that were before me and the people that are going to come after me. And I kind of sit in the middle to try to, clean up a little bit what's happened with my ancestors, in the past and what they did to Mother Nature, and hopefully leave a better world behind me when I'm done with this project. And the idea with this project too and how it supports Indigenous reconciliation is we are reintroducing the plants that belong here. So lawn has been a symbol of colonization because it's a way that we master Mother Nature and we make sure everything world around us is less chaotic and looks like ordered. But the idea is to reintroduce the plants here and reintroduce the ecosystem, which is really the order that ought to be in on this land. So okay, so moving on with gardening with native plants. So what are native plants? So native plants are plants that were here in the region before European settlement. So that's pretty straightforward. So these are the plants that our insects have grown together for thousands of years. And I'm going to explain to you two main reasons why you should care about native plants. So the first reason I'm going to give you will be more human-centric. So why as humans should we care about native plant gardening? And then the second part of this is going to be focused on what are the ecological benefits of growing native plants on our properties. So the human reason first. So typically the way we've gone about to getting plants to put in our gardens was to go to the nursery store or go to like a place like Walmart or Canadian Tire or something. You walk by, you see a pretty plant that you really like. You're like, okay, I'm gonna take this plant and put it in my garden. And then because it doesn't belong here, then you have to water it more often. You have to use fertilizers with it, and sometimes you have to use pesticides. And so the idea is for native plant gardening, we kind of spin this whole process on its head. And what we do is we start by asking ourselves, what kind of ecosystem do I have on my property? So is it dry? Is it wet? Is it shady? Is it sunny? And then once we have identified those characteristics, then we ask ourselves, what kind of plants thrive in this ecosystem in the wild? So if we have a sunny spot, then we grow sunny plants. If we have a wet spot, then we grow wet plants. And so what happens is, because we are giving them the conditions that they are part of the ecosystem with, and that they're used to grow without our intervention, then we don't have to take care of our garden as much because we've chosen the right plants for the right conditions. So once you do that, you don't need to fertilize, use pesticides, nor water after they're established. So this summer, I did not water my garden one time and everything was fine. And so because I've chosen the right plants for the right spots. And so I want you to start thinking about that instead of, oh, I like this plant, I'm just going to shove it in the ground that I have, you know? Like what really fits with the conditions that I have at home? The second reason why we encourage people to grow native plants is for the ecosystem. And so I mentioned earlier that plants and wildlife have co-evolved together for thousands of years. So what does that mean in terms of examples? So for example, the bees, you know, the native bees emerge at the same time as my maple starts blooming in the summer, in the springtime. So the maple gets pollinated by the bees and the bees get food. So this is a relationship that they have together. Another type of relationship is we have a plant called red columbine, and that plant starts blooming at the same time as the hummingbirds get here from southern Ontario. And that plant tube is shaped like a tube and it's perfectly the right size to match the beak of the hummingbird in it. So the hummingbird gets the food and the plant gets pollinated by the hummingbirds. And the plant is bright red to attract more hummingbirds, and the hummingbirds really enjoy that plant. So these plants have grown together for thousands of years, and yeah, exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. So these are kind of examples of coevolution. And what happens, for example, if we introduce trees that are not native that bloom outside the springtime, that means that the bees are not going to get that food when they come out in the springtime, for example. So sometimes when we have introduced different trees or different plants, we kind of mess up a little bit those relationships that have been established over thousands of years. Also, we've been importing and changing plants faster than they can adapt. So we have brought plants from Asia, from Europe, And we've also been altering them to present different characteristics, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But that means that, for example, like if we have plants that are now purple because we like purple, well, insects don't eat off purple plants. So that's not useful for the ecosystem, for example. And so, hostas are kind of nice because you don't need to have a lot of you don't need to really do anything with them, but at the same time, because they come from abroad, they don't feed really our local native insects. So the idea is to keep the plants local so that we feed the local insects. There's also a lot of buzz. Okay, this is like a little bit of a pun here around pollinators. Sorry, I thought that was good. I just thought about that. And so pollinators are great, but they are the adult form only of insects. So at that stage, when we think about the monarch, for example, when it's become an adult, it's typically like a generalist, and so is other like, types of moths and butterflies like that. So they will eat pretty much off any plant. What happens is when they're babies, they depend on specific chemicals present in specific groups of plants to be able to survive. So again, if we think of the monarch, we know the common milkweed is an example. So the baby must have milkweed to eat because they depend on those chemicals to be able to survive. And so if we want to maximize our impact, we want to grow the plants that they depend on for their full life cycle instead of just when they're at the adult stage where they're more generalist. So the idea is reintroducing local plants to be able to support their full life cycle. And also what happens is sometimes they will visit other plants, that are not necessarily native, but sometimes they're not the most nutrition plant also. So it's the equivalent of going to McDonald's instead of having a home cooked meal. So native plants are also more nutritious. So anyways, so these are some of the reasons why native plants are crucial for the ecosystem. So don't trust me, trust the science. So I have a few data points for you here by the numbers. So as I was saying, like more than 9 out of 10 moth and butterfly caterpillars eat only particular groups of native plants to survive. So that's a high number. So a lot of them depend on specific plants, specific native plants. So if we have an introduced plant, they're not gonna be able to feed their babies. So if we think also of, think of the ecosystem as a whole, I'm just going to give an example of who eats off insects. So what happens if we grow native plants? We generate more insect, we have more moths, we have more caterpillars. Baby birds only, most of them, 96% of them eat insects. They cannot digest seeds because their digestive system is too juvenile, I guess. And so they need soft-bodied insects that is easily digestible to be able to survive. So even if you have a bird feeder for 96% of youngs, that's not going to cut it off. They need the insects. So native plants generate a lot of insects that they need to survive. So to be able to generate enough caterpillars, okay, or insects for one chickadee brood, you need your garden to be 70% native plants. So that's kind of the threshold. Like we're not telling people, oh, you have to only have native plant and no, this is not what we're saying, but we're saying try to achieve 70% so then you know that you're at least able to generate enough insects to feed one chickadee brood. And think about it in terms of our whole ecosystem. If we replaced our lawn with native plants, how much more insects we could generate and how many more chickadee broods we could feed. So that represents 2,000 to 3,000 caterpillars per baby and 2 to 3 babies per brood. So that's a huge number of insects we're looking at and that we kind of have to generate to be able to have the ecosystem that we want to have. So for the seed library also, like everything we do is free. So all the seeds are provided for free. All the plants are provided for free. Everything we do is free. And the reason why is because we want to encourage people to build interconnected habitat. So, as you know, like it's good to have one little habitat by yourself, but if you want a stronger and more resilient ecosystem, the more interconnected it is, the better it is. So, the idea here, this is the green belt. This is my house. I live in Orleans, and this is the river here. There's a little park here. If I could convince my neighbors to grow native plants, we could create a habitat corridor for wildlife connecting this little part here with this little part here. And we know that the more interconnected we are, the better the food web is, the better the biodiversity, and the better it is for some species that might have a harder time to adapt to different disruptions in the system. So that's why we want to work together and we are doing everything for free because we want to minimize any barriers people have to be able to grow native plants to do all that good stuff. So now there's also like because native plants are becoming more and more trendy, I guess, and people are taking more and more an interest in it. There's more and more what we call like cultivars, which is short for cultivated variety, available. So we're trying to raise awareness about that too. So for us, like for the seed library, we only share what's called like a straight species. So that means a species that hasn't been altered. So the type of alteration that you're gonna typically find is different color bloom than in the wild, different size, less foliage, because people prefer to have pretty plants, and sometimes different colors. So if we look at this street species that we would typically find in the wild in Ontario, so this one is called Flux subulata, the same name as here. But here on the tag, you can see that it's also called like scarlet flame in quotation mark. So scarlet flame means that this is a cultivated variety. And as you can see, they altered the plant to be more pink, shorter, and bloom for a longer period of time at a different time of the year than what the street species would. So the way to tell if it's a cultivated variety is by those quotation mark here on the tag. So that also means that the company has trademarked this plant. So you're not supposed to propagate it. You're not supposed to give it to anybody. You're supposed to just keep that in your garden. So what happens also for those type of species is they're cloned over and over and over. So the company will say, "Oh, we really like this one, so clone, 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 clone." And through the cloning of plants, we lose a lot of the genetic diversity that you would typically find in the wild. And that makes the population weaker than, when we know that you have a broader diversity. So there's different reasons to be aware of cultivars, and we don't encourage people to buy them. So make sure if you are getting some seeds and getting some plants that you're getting the straight species. So we follow a little bit of a different cycle than Mother Nature too, and this is meant to illustrate. We follow the same cycle as Mother Nature, which is a little bit different than what you would typically find in traditional gardening. So here on this slide, I want to explain to you what we're doing, all year round. So first of all, we're kind of here now. Sorry, November, Mélanie. Like, no, not September. So in November, we are seed packing and collecting seeds from everybody. And then we have also seed giveaway event. So every Saturday, we give away free seeds across the city, a different place. And we do that for 8 weekends in a row. And the idea is to be as accessible as we can for people, and everything is free. Then we are going to do what we call our mail out. So whatever's left over from the seed giveaway events, we are going to mail out for free across Ontario and different provinces. Then in January and February is when it gets a little interesting. This is when we do what we call winter sowing. So because the plants have evolved to be in the Canadian winters, they have a protective shells around them that can only be broken through freeze and thaw cycle. And then it kind of makes it a little bit mushy and then it can germinate. So your seeds have to be going through the winter to be able to germinate. So basically what we do is at this time of year, we distribute the seeds and then we explain to you to take pots, fill them with soil, sprinkle the seeds on top, and leave them outside for the winter. And then you're gonna have seeds that are gonna sprout in May. So that's basically the way we get our seeds to grow. So right now is the perfect time to get seeds. I'm gonna talk to you how you can get seeds later. But anyway, so after that we do a winter sowing. We do a little bit of seed envelope making events. So we make our seeds for or our seed packages for when we do our seed packing in the fall. And then in the summer, we have what we call plant giveaway events. So everybody that has extra plants or extra seedlings they don't use, we gather in a park and we line them up on the ground, and you can take as many perennials as you wish. So this is a little bit like how we function all year round. So right now is our busiest time of the year because we are packing as we are giving seeds away. So I'm gonna give you a few like little tips, like that you can do in your garden that's gonna make a big difference, and that doesn't cost you anything. So the first one is like changing our mindset. If it's not getting eaten by native insects, it's not part of the ecosystem. So the way that we've been traditionally raised to think about gardening is if you see like something eating off your plant, that's not good. That means that your plant is going to die and you gotta get some pesticides extinction. Only humans do. Sorry, it's a bad joke. But anyways, the insects are pretty good at, not decimating your whole population of the type of plant that they like. So I'm gonna give the example of this is called like a cavity nesting bee, and we call them leafcutter bees. So they have a little part here where they have a bit of a scissors at the end of their mouth, so then they can cut off like little pieces of leaves from plants. And then they fly away with that like a little witches, I guess, almost on their brooms. And then they use that to fill the cavities. And then they lay their eggs within the cavities and then some food with them. So these bees, you shouldn't be worried about them because they're single moms. They don't care about humans. They have to build the nest. They have to lay the eggs. They have to feed the babies. They're really busy. So don't worry about them if you see them in your garden. They're not going to hurt you. They have other things to think about. This is how they look like in my garden. So this is on butterfly milkweed here. And this is what they did 1 year to my plant. So you can see like it pretty much look as like a Swiss cheese. It's very, you look at that, you think, oh my God, that plant has been decimated. Mélanie, you should be doing something about it. But actually that plant bloomed that year. So the plant was fine, even though it looked like it was eaten. And the bee was getting what it needed to have babies. So that's just an example of, if it gets eaten, it's part of the ecosystem. Just let it be, as long as it's native. If it's Japanese beetles, that's an invasive species. That's something else that you can get rid of. But if it's a native plant, if it's a native insect or pollinator, feel free to just let them do their thing. They're not gonna decimate your plant. We also have what we call the cavity nesting bees. So there's two types of cavity nesting bees. There's ones that are called excavators. So you need to leave the pith of the stem intact so then they can excavate themselves a little hole in there. And there are renters. So the renters are those that take advantage of existing cavities. So the idea is, when people start saying, I'm gonna clean my garden in the fall or in the spring, instead of cutting everything to the ground, if you could leave like a little bit of maybe a foot tall or even less than that, it would be useful for cavity nesting bees and insects. That would be awesome because they use that to overwinter, and that provides them with some location to be able to spend the winter. I also want to say so what you can do is you can chop them, but gently, leave about this. and then you want to leave them there like forever, because what happens is, and you're gonna see that like during like on Facebook, so mostly like when it starts being the springtime, people say like, oh, don't clean your garden until it's like 10 or 15 degrees Celsius because the bees are gonna emerge and things like that. So yes, there are some bees that emerge in the springtime, but some bees will actually emerge in June and July and the different times of the year. And so the idea is not to clean your garden because you don't know when the bee is going to complete its full life cycle. So if it comes out in June, it means it's only going to come out in June next year. So you want to make sure you leave your stem so then it can complete its full life cycle. And you want to make sure that you don't clean your garden like before, June, July, or whatever that bee is going to come out. So that's something very simple that you can do. So you just chop off the dead plant to expose either the hollow stem or the pithy stem. And that should be enough for those insects and the cavity nesting bees to be able to find themselves a nice winter spot. Another thing that's really useful is to leave, if you can, tree stumps or trees, dead trees or logs, so that those cavities can be used also by others like the woodpeckers. And I don't know if you knew that, but woodpeckers are actually a keystone species. So a keystone species mean if that species were to die or to become extinct, that means that other would also follow because part of the ecosystem would fall with them. And so woodpeckers are keystone species because of the very important ecological value they provide with the holes that they create, because they create cavities that can be used by insects or by birds or by different things. So if you leave dead wood, that can also be useful for a variety of insects and animals. This is not new. You've probably heard this before. So leaving the leaves, that's a really good practice to do. And if you can't leave them on your lawn because you're worried it's going to kill your lawn, you can rake them and put them in a little pile somewhere with like chicken wire around it or something. What happens is in the fall, like some insects will crawl onto like the tree, wrap themselves around the tree leaves, and then fall on the ground. And so if you go and you kind of rake it or you like put them through the lawnmower, you're gonna put all those insects through the lawnmower. So by just raking them, you're kind of letting them go through the winter. The leaves are also important because they provide also what's called like a soft landing. So a soft landing is when, birds kind of like start to learn how to fly. They kind of fall off the nest and then they fall like on the ground. So leaves also have an ecological value as they provide like that kind of soft landing for birds. They also keep in the moisture. They also like provide some good fertilizer that is very cheap to your garden. And so you can rake the leaves in your garden or make a pile somewhere that's useful. That's going to prevent little moths like this one to being thrown in the garbage. And this is what I found in my garden this springtime. This is a polyphemus moth. It's very big. It was about this big. And basically the cocoon is, dead leaves that they wrap themselves around with it. And then this is a male and a female moth mating. So I don't know. And they basically don't eat, they just mate and then they die. So I don't know how he found her in my pile of leaves, but that was pretty impressive. So you want to do like native plants, but you've never done it and you don't know where to start. So I'm going to give you a few tips on how to get started. The first tip is get a good app to ID all the plants that you have in your yard. So that's the first step. Try to understand what is what. I put on the screen here two good apps that it's called iNaturalist and Seek by iNaturalist. They're free. And what's nice about them is that the data is used by scientists to conduct research. So you're also helping science at the same time. There are other apps out there. There's Picture This, for example. There's Google Lens you can use. There's different things, but I promote those ones because they're good for scientists. So the first step is to identify all the plants in your yard. Then, once you've done that, you can move on to the next step, which is preventing the spread of invasive species. So we talked a lot about native plants, but we haven't talked a lot about invasive species. So invasive species are non-native plants that are also detrimental to the environment. So your hosta, they're not invasive because they're not detrimental to the environment. They're not the best thing that you could have in terms of ecological impact, but they're not invasive. What I'm talking about invasive species are things that take over in the wild. So like periwinkle is one, English ivy is one, creeping jenny, buckthorn, Japanese barberry, purple loosestrife, all of those plants that you, creeping bellflower, daylilies. So those ones like the idea is to spread before you put native plants in, just try to prevent them from spreading more. So because different plants have different requirements on how to remove them, I'm directing you to the Ontario Invasive Plant Council where they provide guidance on how you can remove that. So because some of them, like if you cut them, they just grow stronger. So you really have to know what you're doing. So this is the place to go to deal with your invasive species. And then once you have removed them, you don't put them in the yard waste bags because this is not gonna be hot enough to break them. Put them in either your garbage or the green bin. And the green bin, apparently, that's safe. Then once you're done dealing with your invasive species, then we recommend adding native species. Dealing with invasives, then we recommend adding native species. So for that, like you can remove, non-native and replace them with native alternatives. So for example, if you have brown eye or black-eyed Susans, that's a cultivar, you can replace it with a native one. You have geranium, that's not native, you can replace it with a wild geranium that's native. So there are like some that are equivalent from one another. So that's an easy switch. So you don't have to change your whole design. You just replace, whatever you have with something that kind of looks the same. But if you're like me and you're like, go big or go home, and for me, I'm not going back to New Brunswick, so I have to go big in my garden. And so, what you can do is take some cardboard, put them on your lawn, and then add on top of it like several inches of mulch or leaves, or it could be lawn clippings, could be I don't know, different things like that, twigs. And then we call that the lasagna method, and it's gonna slowly kill your uh, grass to replace it with just soil. So this is the perfect time of the year to do it in the fall because the winter's gonna do all the work for you, and in the springtime you're gonna have a new flower bed. So that's what I've done to remove all of the lawn that I have in front of my property, and that's worked really well. So I highly recommend that method, and you don't have to dig. Digging actually breaks down some of the relationships that there is between like trees and fungi and stuff like that. So this is the best way to disturb the less the soil. So this is like locally where you can buy native plants. So we are really lucky. We have a lot of good nurseries here. So these are some of the ones that we know that and we trust. So this presentation will be recorded so you can have access to the list later. And I'm gonna also share with you This is where we're gonna have our native seed giveaway. So if you're interested in growing your plants, you can show up to one of our events here. We have one coming up in Manor Park this weekend, one in Gatineau, one in Orleans, and one in Canada. So these are the ones coming up. So all you have to do is you show up. Everything is free, and we're gonna show you how to winter sow. So that's gonna be really easy. You're gonna see there's no, we're gonna remove all the barriers for you, and we're gonna show you how to be successful at it. So finally, I encourage you to join us on our social media. We're pretty active on Facebook. This is how we mostly share information. We also are on YouTube. We are also like on Instagram and TikTok, and a little bit on Reddit too. So if you have any other questions also for me after this presentation, like you can reach me at this email right here. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you
Do you
so
have
much,
any questions?
Melanie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there are questions. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise, and I hope that this inspires everyone to collaborate and to take local action, especially in their own backyard or front yard. So, friends, if you have a question or a comment, please raise your virtual hand. And Melanie, I think you can see folks, and you can just call on
Oh,
them.
yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. Okay. We're going to start with Bill.
Yes, thanks, Emily. That was really brilliant. Um, I just was thinking while you were explaining all this that maybe there's natural species or native species that are evolving away from because of climate change. What is natural is changing, and how do you take and what is invasive? If we mean by invasive, we mean people buying decorative plants and sticking them in the ground, and
Yeah.
they take off and destroy things.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, how does climate change maybe encourage invasive, naturally invasive species, and
Correct.
do those then become natural or non-invasive species because they are the new nature as a result of climate change?
No, unfortunately, the climate change is really like bringing more and more species to become invasive. So it's actually like being more like a disfavor, like acting more in disfavor of plants. I would say that also that there's like a debate also within like there's two school of thoughts, I guess, as to what the role of the gardener is when it comes to climate change. So there are some people that are like, we have to really protect the local plants that we have and really grow only like local plants to the Ottawa region, for example. Whereas some people think that we, because of climate change, we have a responsibility to migrate the trees and the plants that come more from southern Ontario that are more adapted to the future climate that we're going to have here.
Mhm.
So there are some people that are taking native plants from Toronto and the Carolinian forest and bringing them to this region on purpose so that they are more adapted to our climate. We've also created, um, because we live in urban environments now that are really dry and sunny. And typically here, this region used to be more like a swamp. So some people would argue also that we've also introduced like new changes already to our environment. So the solution to that varies depending of the people. Some people say we really have to protect what we have, and some people will say it like you have to migrate those plants and trees. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Who else has random? Okay, Tao. Sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly.
Hi. No, that was perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for the really inspiring presentation. My question is just around, like, I live in an apartment and
Oh,
I don't
yes.
really have access to my own like outdoor garden. So I was just wondering what you would suggest in terms of like, I guess, community gardens, or like how maybe
Yeah.
I can like do that in terms of, I guess, like
Yeah, yeah.
public
And you
gardens
do you
and
have a
public
balcony?
spaces. No.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have a balcony? Okay. No, because if you had a balcony, there are plants that can take containers.
Okay.
But if you want to get involved with like local groups, if you send me an email, I can put you in contact with some local groups that do some gardening. If you let me know which area you're in,
Okay. Yeah, no, that'd be great. Do you have
I
a
can put it in
specific
the chat.
email? Okay, yeah, that'd be great. And then I can send you an email. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, exactly. And I can put you in contact with those people if that's I'm sure they would love an extra pair of hands.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay, thank
They're
you.
also like if you're interested, there are also like people that grow like there's a have you ever heard of the Just Food Farm?
No?
Okay. So it's a farm like nearby Blackburn Hamlet,
Okay.
and they're on Pepin Court, and they lease plots of their land to people. So if you ever want to have your own too, you could do that. I'm just gonna put the Just Food link in there. I'm just gonna put the link in the chat. So they have like plots of land for people that you can rent them.
That's awesome.
And a lot of people grow native plants there and food, mostly food plants though. Yeah. Has that answered your question?
Yes, and even more.
Okay, good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Good. Lisa?
Bonjour Mélanie,
Bonjour.
merci infiniment pour une présentation merveilleuse.
Derrière.
I can't believe that this is not your day job. I mean, it's just really, it's incredible what you're doing, and I'm so
Thank you.
proud of you. I'm so
Thank
impressed.
you.
And I've also worked in the federal government, and but have taken up gardening just in the last couple of years. And
Nice.
I just think that this type of education is very timely, and
Yeah.
it's what's needed.
Good.
And I know that some people might argue about whether to enhance the native plants or plant new plants. I think it's just really urgent to help everyone take an interest in the natural world around
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And gardening of any kind is so useful. It's such a great doorway into that. So,
Yeah.
gosh, I hope you continue, and I'd love to maybe
Thank you.
stop by the Manor Park this weekend just to meet you. But
Nice. I'm happy to.
yeah,
It would be nice
so
to meet
excited.
you.
It's wonderful.
Nice.
But so I do have a bit of a question, and I don't want to be
Yeah.
I don't want to be too negative with this, but what I've noticed, and I'm living in Montreal, by the way, but I have lived in
Okay.
Ottawa, but what I'm noticing there are a lot of manicured lawns in the area, and I
Yeah.
don't think people realize, I mean, they're incredibly harmful, as is the use of the
Yeah.
fossil fuel tools instead of just picking up a rake, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's just a heavy use of pesticides, and I know there is supposed to be regulated by Environment Canada, and each municipality seems to have a person who's in charge of that. There doesn't seem to be a lot of oversight. And there's literally people coming by, and they've started their own business, and they come by offering to kill everything on your lawn. They show you a
Yeah.
picture of everything that they will kill. And it's, and people are in
Yeah.
difficult economic times and stuff. So I don't want to rain on everyone's parade or be the one who comes and challenges tough people who are like
Yeah.
building their territories doing this kind of activity. But is there anything, I mean,
Yeah.
there's two things. I mean, I can throw myself into the gardening education, and I'd really love to do that. And I've learned a lot from your presentation, but I do think like this is like the last bastion of biodiversity, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people are willingly, unknowingly, but willingly killing off
Yeah.
bees,
Yeah.
butterflies, birds. So what can we do?
Yeah. I don't know. Like we've had debates because we are starting to venture into like lobbying the government too, like the municipal government, and we had to choose our battles, as you can imagine, because there's a lot of things that is going on, and so yeah, because it's like because they also like don't encourage people to leave the leaves, for example, even though we know it's a good practice to build the soil and things like that. Uh, like why are we encouraging people to grow pollinator gardens instead of, like in Ottawa it's been reformed a little bit, so they're more tolerant of it, but people still feel like they can't garden as much as they would like, even with when it comes to food security. But they changed the bylaw, so it's a little bit better, but the stigma around it is still persistent, I would say. And so
Yeah.
it's very hard to decide like where to start. Like for us, what we kind of decided to do at the end of the day was approach the city in a more positive way because we find that we make more leeway with people when we come with a positive message. Because people get turned off now, especially now with the political climate, with like, negative stuff. So that's kind of where we chose to, so build more pollinator garden, have more community gardens, and hopefully as we educate more people, people become vote differently also and start caring about these matters. So that's why we're like so on social media and things like that to try to educate people because ultimately like these people are the ones that are gonna make the decision at the end, like who gets elected or not. So that's kind of how we decided to do our thing. But I agree with you, like mosquito spraying also, like all of that stuff here is mosquito spraying is a big deal here, and yeah, so yeah, it's very yeah, it's very um it can be like very heart-wrenching, I guess, when you know the impact and because there's a cost to knowing more, the cost is that you are aware of what they're doing to nature now, like veil has been lifted. But we try to remain positive because people are so turned off by anything negative these days that there's no point in even going there, we find. Like we've had a few negative posts about political stuff and it just doesn't resonate with people anymore. They're just saturated. So that's kind of where we landed.
Hmm.
And it's interesting what you bring it up because I found the spiritual element of this presentation is very interesting. And I should have mentioned that like before when I was talking about Indigenous perspective. My Mitzi friend was telling me that the other day that for for Indigenous peoples, like elders are like the most important people in their community because for them, they know all relations. And by all relations, they mean like all the beings. And the beings include plants and animals and humans and things like that. So an elder, a person that is knowledgeable and respected, is somebody that knows all about the plants and the animals and all the relatives. And I think that's also like the pursuit of giving a voice to the voiceless. Insects are super voiceless. I think that's also like a spiritual endeavor, but also like the fact that we are encouraging people to be able to grow more along with nature and be in nature and understand nature. And I think that's really a good pursuit for spiritual awakening because um, as a human, I cannot tell you what to do because you're gonna get turned off by this. And that links into what we were saying. People get turned off if I start preaching to you. But if I give you free seed and then you grow those seeds and then you see the monarch, you see for yourself the bees, you see for yourself all the good life that's happening, you're learning for yourself. And that's changing hearts. So that's also part of the gamble that we're doing by giving everything for free and the plants for free. So, Farid, do you have a question? Thank you for your beautiful violin. I used to play violin too.
Thank you. I think Heather was first.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Heather. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Sorry, I don't know why I'm not getting my video. Now
That's
I have
okay.
okay, now I have my video. I think. No, what turns out I don't. Any case, I live in where I live, I have in an apartment as well. I have a large balcony and it has and it's also a glass balcony.
Okay.
So I get it's quite warm, and I do
Nice.
have I had like 11 containers out there last year. I grow a lot
Nice.
on my balcony in the summer, and there's a lot of space in front because I'm over the Rideau River, and then there's a park across.
Wow, nice.
So I get a lot of light, even though I face sort of northeast. So what sort of native plants would be good on the balcony? Do
Yeah.
you have a list you could send?
Yes, I have a list I can send you. Yeah. If you go on our catalog, we have a catalog now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
And if you go, you show filters. I'm just gonna put the link in there for you.
Okay.
Just a second. Container gardening. There you go. This should take you to the list of plants you can grow in containers.
Okay, thank you.
So these are all things that you can grow in containers. But there's a lot of options for you. And what you do for wintering them, like you just like leave them in pots the whole time. You can put a little bit of leaves on top. But that's pretty much it, though.
Okay, and
And they're gonna come back.
can I leave them outside?
Yes, they should be outside. They can't stay inside. So they're
So-
just gonna overwinter outside.
It's just there's also the pigeon issue.
Okay.
And the more things you have on your balcony, the more apt you are to have pigeons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I clean my balcony off in the winter of everything, and even pots like geraniums and things I bring in
Oh,
and then I put them back out.
okay.
If I could find a way to keep the pigeons off them, or maybe is it would it not would it be okay if I took them and took them to my daughter's for the winter? Would that
Yeah,
matter?
yeah.
'Cause she has
As
a
long
big
as they
yard,
stay outside.
and just leave them outside at
Yeah.
somebody else's yard, that would work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Okay,
For
all
sure,
right,
yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, then your turn now, Farid.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention about opportunities working with uh, the city of Ottawa, or like an advocacy. I work in as a transportation engineer, and so part of what I do is roadway design. And there are a lot of opportunities within like roadway space to plant. And I think Montreal, some neighborhoods of Montreal have really nice examples of that. Also, with rain gardens in Vancouver
Yeah.
and Vancouver area that have been great
Yeah.
examples in Canada. But I feel like Ottawa's quite behind in that sense. And a lot of it is
Absolutely.
because they don't want to
Yeah.
spend on the maintenance costs. It's a lot. They even don't want just grass like that they need to cut. They just would
Yeah.
rather like pave it over with concrete a lot of the time. So
Yeah.
that's also one avenue, is that if there's enough support to, just from a beauty perspective, to be honest, but in some other way to
Yeah.
just plant native perennials that need
Yeah.
actually relatively little maintenance and can look great.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of salt usage, which can sometimes kill native species. But anyhow, that's one thing I would maybe
Yeah.
suggest as a possible avenue for wildflower. Of course, there's the parks themselves
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, that's just my
Yeah,
suggestion
absolutely.
from my profession.
Yeah. Oh, there's another question in the chat. If you overwinter seeds on the top of pots, won't the birds eat them? Yes. The seeds, yes, the birds can eat them. Sometimes what we do is we grow them in jugs that creates like a mini greenhouse. And so the birds cannot get in, nor can the squirrels. So when you come to our event, we're going to show you all how to make sure that the birds don't eat your seeds. Good. But once the plant is established, you want the birds to eat your seeds, because that means it's part of the ecosystem. So it's just when they're babies like that, that you don't want them. But later, yes, you want them to eat them. Thank you, Farid. I agree with everything that you said. Like Ottawa is really behind. And what's really nice about the city of Montreal, I think, is that for the space has to have dual purposes at least. So, like if it's like a bike lane that separates like bikes between the bike and the cars, then they put in like a pollinator garden, so then it separates that, it has that utility of separating the two, but it also helps with the pollinators, or the way that it's shaped can absorb water more. Like, there's also like thinking about a space as multi-usage too. That could be really useful, but yeah, I agree with you. Ottawa is not there yet. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Sean and Ilham.
Yeah, it's me, Elham, my husband.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry
yeah.
for massacring your name.
I was just wondering if there's anything, like we have a lot of land around our house that is it's grass, and I tried my best not to, for a long time, not to hire anyone for, feed or fertilizer. But I lost the battle with the creeping Charlie, so I had to hire
Oh,
someone.
yes.
Yes. Is there any ground cover that's native that we could, just spread the seeds? Because I don't particularly like to feed and fertilize and stuff for the grass. But is there anything that you suggest that's more native?
Yes. So we have several plants that would do the trick. We have like native violets, we have native wild strawberries too, and we have a few like sedges if it's more like a shade spot. So if you come to the event, we can direct you to the ground covers, but this is easier. So you really have to get rid of your lawn before you plant the seeds in. You cannot just sprinkle the seeds, they're not going to take. You're going to have to
Okay.
remove your lawn and then do it. For
Okay.
those ones, I would recommend starting them from plants. Like I can give you some plants if you want to do that. Like I'm in Orleans, like I have a ton of violets that you can plug in your lawn and let them grow over time if you want.
Because I was thinking of just putting it where the grass isn't growing, because I'm just fed up.
Yeah,
I don't
you
wanna
could do that
more.
too, yes.
So can we do that? Like intersperse some of them that are stronger?
Yeah,
and
for
they
the
can-
plants that would work, but I wouldn't sprinkle the seeds there. I would
Would do the
sprinkle the seeds in pots and
Mhm,
then
mhm.
transplant them to
Yes,
give them a
yes.
chance.
I
Yeah.
see. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
You're welcome. If you want, you can send me an email like in the
Yeah.
springtime and I can give you violets. I have a ton of them.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. You're welcome.
Thanks.
They're a host plant for a butterfly too.
Oh,
So they're
good.
pretty important. Yeah, yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Welcome. Carol?
Well, thank you very much, Melanie. I'm in favor of what we all need to see more of, which are the pollinators. Can you kind of list some of the ones that basically are easy and and do the effective job of getting those pollinators to come in?
Yes, yes. So what I'm gonna do is put in the chat like beginner friendly plants. So you can start with those ones and they're pretty good for pretty much everything, and they're really easy to grow from seeds and they're not gonna spread through your garden. So here I just put the link there.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So I encourage you to like explore a catalog. We have a lot of data there that can help you choose the right plant. And it's easier if you come with a list of things you're looking for at our events. Because we have close to 190 species there. So it's easier if you come with your list. But if you don't have your list, we have volunteers that are going to help you select your seeds. Gonna check if I have any more questions. Yes.
Melanie, there are a couple questions in the chat. One is from Dev. And Dev, I see you're still online. Did you want to ask your question directly?
What's your take on pawpaw tree? So we've given
Yeah.
like seeds of pawpaw tree in the past that were the straight species. Some people have successfully grown them in Ottawa, I hear. Part of the challenge with them though is you need a male and a female. So what happens is you need to kind of grow at least a male and a female, so maybe like 3 at least pawpaw trees before to make sure you have a male and a female, or otherwise you're not gonna get fruit. So what happens I see in Toronto, they play like they're trying to find like matches for their plants. I have a male plant if anybody wants to come and pollinate your female plants with. So, that's kind of the challenge with, when it's not like there's not a lot around here. Otherwise, you'd have to pollinate yourself, like the plant. So, yeah, so that's what I would say. It's kind of harder here for that. But I've had here that they can successfully be grown here.
Yes, I do
Yeah.
have 4 plants in my yard.
Yeah, go ahead.
I said I do have 4 plants in my yard, my
Oh,
backyard.
nice.
They're only about 12 inches high. I'm just hoping that they're male and female. Also,
Nice.
I wanted to make a suggestion or a recommendation. I'm not sure which one you want to look at it. First of all, I was very impressed at the opening of your presentation with the photograph of your garden.
Oh, thank you.
You know, and it's very beautiful. And I was just thinking about it. I'm in Toronto, and my yard backs onto a hydro field, which has been converted into a butterfly meadow.
Nice.
For quite a long distance. As an initiative by a previous city councilor.
Okay.
And all the people who backs onto it, we all got together and joined and threw
Nice.
wildflower seeds and everything and created a really impressive butterfly meadow. Now,
Nice.
going back to your yard,
Yeah.
I was just thinking that if a photograph could be done, like let's say a flyer made up showing a photograph of that, and it can be distributed in neighborhoods with the whole concept or the idea that it's maintenance free. Because
Yeah.
I love the idea that you didn't water the garden the entire summer.
Yeah.
And it looks like that. So
Yeah.
I think that is one thing that may be very attractive to many people.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Switch into going into a native planting, you know, because everybody wants to have a beautiful front yard, a beautiful garden, you know.
Yeah.
But for myself, I mean, I'm an avid gardener, and right now, I find because it's so much of it, I'm tired. I'm extremely tired. The maintenance on it, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Going out there. So now I've seen what you've done. I'm rethinking my whole scenario.
Good. That's good.
What you're doing, you know, because the last thought I had was, you know what? Why the hell don't I just concrete the whole yard and just have planter boxes? So now I'm gonna rethink, you know.
Good.
Using your methods and using, you know, the planting native stuff and just letting it grow. Half the yard, I have quite a large yard, so half of it I've left it kind of semi-wild. This is how I refer to it. I tell people I'm just lazy. I leave it semi-wild because from the meadow way in the back they're created, it's also a pathway for a lot of wildlife. There's many coyotes there, and deer, fox, groundhog, all kinds of stuff, you know, that travels through there, and they end up in my backyard sometimes. So I like to leave it so it's attractive to them as well.
Nice.
They feel like they're, you know, it's part of their own environment. So
Nice.
at least half of the yard is kind of semi-wild, and the other half, I grow a lot of hot peppers.
That's awesome.
So I like, but to go back to my suggestion, I think
that's a good idea.
Some kind of a flyer or some you know, poster kind of thing with a photograph showing what it can be like.
Yeah,
You know,
good idea.
It can be like this.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, and for those that are not in the Ottawa region, we are gonna start mailing seeds for free on December 26th. So all you have to do is on December 26th, so it's easy to remember, it's Boxing Day. You're gonna go on our website, go to our shop, and you're gonna be able to order any seeds that you're looking for and as many quantities as you can use. So we mail those for free.
Wow. There's one more question in the chat from Bem. And his question is, has anyone tried the snail seedling method?
Sorry, I don't know what that means. Snail seedling, no. Sorry. Maybe
Ben?
Ben can expand on. Oh,
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'll try to
Okay.
find like I have a picture I fit here. It's sort of like they wrap up as soil and seeds.
oh yes, I know what you're talking about now. Yes. No.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet, but like my parents and my family we're thinking of doing it like this winter for a
Okay,
couple
that's
seeds.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you try it, let me know. I would love to know if it works.
Well,
I've never
thanks.
tried it myself. Yeah.
Okay.
Please report back.
I will definitely.
Thank you.
You're awesome.
Okay, yeah, I think we all have Melanie's contact info. And it's getting on towards 9 o'clock, so let's make Bill's the last question or comment of the evening.
Well, I just had kind of a technical question. We live in southern Ottawa, like a place called Greeley, and
Okay.
they got a whole lot of orchards around here. It's like they knocked over the orchards to make a suburb or something. And I was wondering, like, is it a bad idea to like just leave your apples when they fall off the trees, or not pick them all up and just leave some there, or should you clean them all up? And because we see people like putting these big piles of apples out for the garbage to pick up, and it's like it seems like there ought to be a better way to manage that.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's useful information, but there's a good charity here, and I don't know if it's in Greeley, but in Ottawa, that's called like I just blank. They come and they harvest your fruit for you at home. Hidden harvest. So basically, it's a charity that goes to your home, picks up your apples, and then distribute that to food banks.
Well, that's excellent.
So that's called the hidden. I just said it. I can't recall. But yeah, so they hidden
Harvest.
Thank you. So they will do that for you. So that's what I would recommend. Like if you have any old archer that you're not using, and it's very easy to be a volunteer for them. You just have to you can be a volunteer leader for them and start your own chapter. It's like you take a little bit of an online course and they will give you the tools to be able to go and harvest the things, I think, and you feed the food bank and people don't have that falling on their ground. So I think that's the best way to go.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you, Melanie, and thank you everyone who asked questions. Let's talk about our next Environment Café 613 briefly. It will be Tuesday, December 16th at 7:30 p.m. And we'll be welcoming a speaker with insights from the COP30 or Conference of the Parties, climate negotiations currently being held in Brazil. So that should be very exciting. Our speaker will share some perspectives on these critical developments and their implications for local and global climate action. And again, if you want information on our upcoming meetings, just include your email in the chat. Also, Melanie, since you spoke about iNaturalist, in the springtime, we're having someone from the iNaturalist organization giving a presentation. So, we wanted to encourage people to be actively involved in the science. It's part of, what's called the citizen science movement. So not only can you learn by uploading your data, but you're sharing data which then can be used by scientists to understand, the plants and insects and animals and such that are in the ecosystem that you're involved in. So I see we've got another hand raised, and Irene has not spoken before, so I'd like to give her an opportunity to ask a question before we close out here.
Hi, sorry, I was a bit slow raising my hand, trying to find the right button. I just want to follow up on the discussion about picking up the apples. I had a neighbor who had an apple tree in her front yard, and then the yard would be full of apples. And, you know, it's a lot of work picking them all up. And what she did is she got this green mesh from, I think it was Lee Valley, and put it on top of the grass. And then the apples fall on the mesh, and then you just pick up the mesh and you have all your apples. And it saves a lot of bending over all the time. So I
Wow.
just thought I'd mention it.
Thanks, Irene.
Yeah, great idea. So finally, I would like again to express our gratitude to Melanie and Fareed. We also want to thank Bill Kelly for preparing today's spiritual program, to Aaron Kelly for hosting the Zoom, and to all the members of the Ottawa Environment Forum who worked together to host the Environmental Café 613 evenings. And we appreciate everyone who joined tonight for your attendance and participation in the discussion. Melanie, as a token of our appreciation, we would like to share a brochure with you called One Planet, One Habitation. I'm going to try to hold it up here for the camera.
Okay, nice.
It's very beautiful. And what this is it's an inspiring statement of the Baha'i international community, which works directly with the United Nations and member countries. And it provides valuable insights as to how we can improve the well-being of both humanity and the planet through recognizing our interdependence and that we are all one people living together in one global homeland. And for those folks who are online and would be interested in that, we can also, in fact, Aaron has already put a link to that information. So you can see it online, but Melanie will send this copy out to you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been such a pleasure to have you, and I've learned a lot. And
Thank you
hope
for
to
having
meet
me.
you at one of your group's seed sharing events or plant sharing. So everyone, have a good evening. Take care, and we look forward to seeing you in December.